Hello, 10th graders, and welcome to the lesson. Today's lesson on page 72, student's book, writing a personal description. Today, you're going to learn how to write a personal description, and you're going to improve your description. You're going to describe one of your favorite relatives, your aunt, uncle, grandfather, grandmother, great-grandfather, whoever is your favorite relative. And you're going to learn about two groups of adjectives. This is the first group: old, great, happy, big, fat, young, bright, individual, incredible, new. We're going to use more interesting adjectives. They are more interesting than these ones when we write. Imagine that you are writing, for example, about your grandfather. You say, my grandfather is old. So we're going to use a more interesting adjective. It is more interesting than old. So we use elder. Elderly. So my grandfather is elderly. Maybe he has a great personality. So we're going to use another more interesting adjective. It's more interesting than great, which is remarkable. So he has a remarkable personality. And he's always happy. We can say he's always cheerful. Maybe he has a big house. And we can use a more interesting adjective, which is enormous. Maybe you have a fat uncle, and you can use more interesting adjective, which is overweight. And if you're writing about a young person, maybe your cousin is young, you can say he's youthful. Maybe you're writing about your aunt or your sister or one of your female relatives. Maybe she wears bright clothes. You can use a more interesting adjective, which is dazzling instead of bright. So she wears dazzling clothes, which means bright clothes. And when you're talking about the adjective individual, so if you describe a person by being individual, you're telling that he's unique. This is a more interesting adjective, which is unique. Incredible. Maybe she has incredible thoughts, which is unbelievable. You can't believe what she thinks. So, incredible. We can use a more interesting adjective, which is unbelievable. And if you want to describe something by telling that it's new, maybe you have bought a new dress or a new clothes, you say brand new. Now this is the second group of adjectives, and also we're going to use more interesting adjectives instead of these ones. So the first one is beautiful. When you describe a woman by telling that she's beautiful, you can use stunning instead of beautiful. She looks stunning. And when you want to describe someone by saying that he's unusual, maybe he has unusual thoughts or he does unusual things, you can say, instead of unusual, unconventional. So unconventional means unusual. And if he has a different look, or if your relative, if she's a female and she looks different than other people, you can say maybe she has uh, something different in her face, a distinctive mark. We can say she's distinctive. She has a distinctive hair. Maybe her hair looks differently. So she has a distinctive hair. We can use distinctive instead of different. And when you want to describe a man by saying that he looks or he's a good looking, you can use the word handsome. And if you have a thin relative and he's really thin and you want to say a more interesting adjective than thin, you can use slim. He's real slim. And if there's someone who's really shy, you can use reserved instead of shy. And if you want to describe something by saying that he's funny or maybe you're seeing something funny, you can say instead of funny, hilarious. You can use hilarious. So you're going to describe one of your relatives and you're going to use the normal adjectives and you're going to underline them and then replace them or write the more interesting adjectives above the normal adjectives. And now we're going to read two texts about describing relatives, but we're going to substitute the bold adjectives with the most or the more interesting adjectives. Let's read the text. You can take this as a model for your writing. My great uncle Tariq, is quite old. And here you can substitute or replace old by saying elderly. But he's really lively. He has a great sense of humor. And you can replace great by saying remarkable sense of humor. And even though he's had quite hard life, he always manages to be happy. And you can substitute happy with cheerful and positive. I love visiting him. He doesn't care about what he wears, but he's very proud of his big mustache. You can replace big with enormous. He loves good food, and to be honest, he's a bit fat, and you can replace it with overweight. I always tell him to get more exercise, but he never takes any notice. This is the second text. My Aunt Abina. I don't know how old Aunt Abina is. She must be about 30, but she still seems very young, and you can use youthful. She loves wearing bright clothes, dazzling, and she always stands out in a crowd. She's really creative, and she loves making things. She makes her own hats, and each one is individual, which means unique. You can substitute it with unique. She has an incredible or unbelievable collection of hats. She loves shopping, too. Maybe she spends a bit too much money on clothes. Every time I see her, she's wearing something new, or we can substitute it with brand new. So what you're going to do in exercise 4, you have to organize your writing into 3 paragraphs. So you have to write 3 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, you have to introduce your relative. If you're writing about your aunt and her name, my uncle and his name, my grandfather and his name. In the second paragraph, you have to write why you like him or why you like her. Well, if you're writing about, for example, about your aunt, my aunt and her name, whatever is it, is quite old, but she's really unusual. She does unusual things, and that's why I like her, for example. In the third paragraph, you have to describe how he or she looks and behaves like. How does she looks or how does she look or how does she behave? She's beautiful, she looks beautiful, and she always wears bright clothes. As you can see, I have used the normal adjectives, beautiful and bright. When you write your description, you have to replace these normal adjectives with the more interesting ones. I have written an example for you of how to describe one of your relatives. For example, if I'm writing about my aunt and her name, my aunt is quite old, and we can substitute old with elderly. But she is really unusual. She's really unconventional. This is how you have to underline the normal adjective and write the more interesting one above it, above the normal adjective. She has a big addiction for shopping, and she always buys things that she doesn't use or clothes which she doesn't wear. I love the way she looks. She is beautiful. We can substitute beautiful with stunning. And she always wears bright clothes or dazzling clothes. She also has a great sense of humor or a remarkable sense of humor, and she tries to keep everyone happy or hilarious when they come to visit her. So this is an example for you. This is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.